Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. We are into Tuesday morning. It is 9:08 a.m. I hope you're having a good start to the day. Some sunshine out there gives way to clouds, and as you just heard, some snow moving in this afternoon. Really, this evening, I'm seeing around 6 or 7 p.m. overnight. More on the coast, maybe 3 to 4, 3 to 5, 1 to 3, 2 to 4 inland, but some snow overnight. Milder tomorrow. Perfect timing for the snow. I got some buddies coming back from Lauderdale, Florida this morning, and I texted them to let them know it's going to be snowing here when they get in. I thought that was nice of me. Just a habit of mine from like junior high school. You know, the wise guy sitting next to your buddy in math class. Hey, hope you're having a good start to the day, and we have a packed show for you, J-Dog. We're going to hear from Executive Counselor Joe Kenney, ongoing concerns over this flap or questions about who knew what when, as it pertains to that possible proposed ICE detention facility in Merrimack, New Hampshire. A certain department of someone within a certain department, apparently the Trump administration, Homeland Security, did not do an end run. They filed, and for some reason, with all the news going on over the last several weeks, all the news going on, all the high-pitched emotion over immigration and ICE, someone apparently did not notify the governor and executive council of this request, even though it was apparently leaked to the ACLU and the public knew about it. Media seemed to be asking the governor. What a mess. We're going to hear from, I think, Executive Counselor Joe Kenney. We had this first yesterday morning in the 9 o'clock hour, by the way. I just heard Mike in the Morning Information Center pop and others talking about the stories today. We had it first yesterday morning that Sarah Stewart, head of the department in question, resigned. Governor Kelly Ayotte happy to accept that resignation. We had that yesterday morning in the 9 o'clock hour. And then Executive Counselor John Stephen called into the program and was quite concerned about that. So we expect to hear from another of the executive counselors in a moment. We're also going to be hearing in the 10 o'clock hour, J-Dog. It's our monthly exclusive to this show, Good Morning New Hampshire, the Pulse of an H, Attorney General segment. And we're going to hear from two of the Attorney Generals who focus on crimes against children and some of these most atrocious crimes that we see about. And by the way, J-Dog, just a really bizarre, sad story still out of Arizona and still in the search for Nancy Guthrie. And our poll question up on X, and I hope the answer is because according to at least one of her daughters, Savannah, they believe that her mother's still out there. FBI's involved, state, local, sheriffs, everyone, and they just can't find any real traction in solving this case, it appears. But our poll question up on X at the Pulse of an H, do you believe Nancy Guthrie is still alive and out there? Obviously, the family clinging and hoping and holding on to that hope against all odds. But I don't know. I've even read online out of Arizona media, if you go to local media like the Fox TV affiliate and, Arizona, finding this victim alive, this 84-year-old mom, and apparently very well thought of woman, Nancy, went missing from her home, didn't her basically medications, which one would need at her, I guess what they said were kind of life-related medications, were in the home. I guess there was some blood in the home. This whole thing doesn't sound good at all, obviously. But we haven't seen any capture or kidnapping video or audio with a stamp date on a cell phone from the last several days that she's, somewhere and alive to let the public and her family know. So I don't know where this goes. They seem to be genuinely stumped. I do think they're going to solve it, and I think it will be sooner than later. They just have so much manpower and investigative power on this, and technology today is rather remarkable. So I think they're going to, but again, it's that break in the case. Did someone screw up? Do they find that one piece of evidence? So they already have a suspect or two, and they're just waiting to kind of put pressure. I don't know. I have seen over the years, though, that these cases are usually, as Rory O'Neill, our national correspondent, joining us yesterday, said they're usually closer to home than people think. They're usually someone the victim knew versus a stranger in the night. And this case has just really gripped the nation with a lot of curiosity. Coming up, our own White House correspondent, John Decker, will be joining us. And then, as I said, we do have a very interesting and a very important segment coming up with our Attorney General and the Attorney General's office. And today we have a couple of senior law enforcement investigators, speaking of investigators with the New Hampshire Department of Justice. And these are veteran investigators working active cases right here at home on sex crimes and human trafficking. Also, an assistant attorney general is joining us, Alexander Kellerman of the Department of Justice Criminal Justice Bureau. I think we even have a third attorney general, assistant attorney general, joining us, David Lovejoy. So we got a packed show coming up, and so don't change a thing. And there are ways you can help these people to help children who have become just such, sad victims. John Decker is going to join us in a moment. The new Epstein files have been released to Congress, and we've seen ramifications right here. We've seen ramifications right here in New Hampshire as it relates to certain public figures like Dean Kamen in Manchester, names mentioned in some of the congressional races and some of these emails, affiliations with Kamen, who had a closer affiliation with Epstein and Maxwell, according to the email. So we'll have an update. And then Rory's also going to talk about the latest in the search for Nancy Guthrie. When we come back, we're going to track down one of our executive counselors who's just on a call and going to be joining us on the latest. And this story I led with, and yesterday we had it first, this resignation of Sarah Stewart, who is a commissioner in a department that includes cultural affairs and other, buildings and, oversight in New Hampshire. But she resigned yesterday morning in the first hour of our show. And we had executive counselor John Stephen call in reacting to that resignation. And just so I can frame this in layman's terms for you, in the last several weeks, if you were in New Hampshire or anywhere, today you're connected, you could have been in Europe, you probably saw news. If you're listening to us streaming, hey, Google, hey, Alexa, worldwide, play the Pulse of an Age. You heard the stories and me talking about, was there a proposed federal ICE detention facility slated on the books to renovate a building in Merrimack, New Hampshire? And when this first broke, everyone's like, what? Where's this coming from? Governor Kellyanne was asked about it, as she probably well should have been, and she answered she did not know. The insinuation was, at a time of hysteria over the debate over ICE and what was happening in Minneapolis and other states, in Maine, by the way, Maine, a week or two ago, they had the big roundup of more than 200 illegal immigrants in the state of Maine. So the question was, what's going on? Is there going to be a facility right here, in New Hampshire? And is the Trump administration or Department of Homeland Security trying to do an end run here and keep local officials in the dark? Well, apparently the answer to that question was no. One of the departments was notified by Homeland Security on a filing for an interest, as they should have done, for this facility in Merrimack. And the question is, did someone in former Commissioner Stewart's department not tell either the commissioner, or did someone there, for whatever reason? And these are the questions John Stephen, the executive counselor, yesterday, Attorney General's office is investigating. We expect to hear from another counselor this morning. Amazingly, remarkably, the American Civil Liberties Union, otherwise known as ACLU, the American Civil Liberties, ACLU, they filed an immediate 24-hour request, right to know, from this department about this facility to verify that it was real, because people didn't know, if this proposed ICE detention facility, which, by the way, would house hundreds of detainees, up to 1,000, I think, a big facility, it's a big deal. And the people of Merrimack, New Hampshire, and the state of New Hampshire probably should, not probably, the governor has said this, they should know this. So did someone in that department knowingly leak the filing of this application of permit to the ACLU for the right to know? And is that how it got out? Versus telling the governor and executive council, which you think that would be your rightful responsibility. And I don't think the governor's too happy about this, Governor Ayotte. I don't think the attorney general and the executive council is not. So we're going to have a lot more on this morning. Hey, Alexa, Google, play the Pulse of NH. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. We are back in a few. Hey, Jack Heath here. I'm asking.
Now back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
All right, we appreciate it. Streaming on YouTube at the Pulse of NH, worldwide. Hey Google, hey Alexa, play the Pulse of NH. Interstate 95 in Hampton. There you go on the digital billboard, Vinny Media, the pulse of an H. I was talking earlier, and I just set up or teed up this story we broke yesterday morning, the resignation of Commissioner Sarah Stewart of a department, which apparently was notified. I'm going to let the executive counselor, Joe Kenny, joining us live now, one of the 5 elected governor and executive counselors who has concerns and questions. I'm going to let him correct me if I have any of this wrong, counselor. But apparently, at a time when so much attention was on federal immigration, ICE enforcement in states like Maine, Minneapolis, and questions right here in New Hampshire. Not questions, but just the issue. This story of a proposed possible ICE detention facility of good size in Merrimack, New Hampshire, kind of came out of nowhere. The American Civil Liberties Union filed a request to know from this department, and the inference was that the Trump administration, Homeland Security, would kind of do an end run, keep New Hampshire in the dark. The governor was being asked about it. It would be hard. You had to be under a rock in New Hampshire to not know about this story in Merrimack. And then yesterday morning during my show, we have the sudden resignation of a commissioner of said department. And the question is, Counselor, if I correct me on any of this, and I'm going to let you have the balance of the time here to inform us of your concerns. The Attorney General's office is investigating. Governor Kelly Ayotte's not happy about this. Who knew what when? And apparently Homeland Security properly notified the state. The question is, did someone intentionally, for whatever motivation, not tell you and Governor Ayotte about this? Do I have this essentially correct or not?
No, Jack, you have it correct. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be on your show. I think obviously the Governor Council is very concerned about this development. Obviously, anybody, like you said, would have to be under a rock to know that this Merrimack detention facility is a high-profile issue. And for the department not to elevate it up to the commissioner to raise concern, then there was obviously a complete breakdown in communication in that department. There's this thing called the Section 106 of the National Historical Preservation Act. So anytime that there's a large parcel of land that's being sold or purchased, it has to run through this process at DNCR. And that's really to check for any type of historic, landmarks or, archaeological site or anything of that nature. So it's pretty standard. So if that thing comes across my desk, I'm going to say, oh, that's all about that detention facility. I better tell my commissioner, who in turn needs to tell the governor. That needs to be pretty basic stuff. This brings me back to a few months ago when Commissioner Taylor Caswell and his staff was working with a Chinese bottling company.
Nong Fu Springs. Nong Fu Springs. And I raised that yesterday. How come no one came out from that department and said, hey, we recruited them?
Exactly. So these commissioners have to be, they're appointed, they're confirmed, they're in essence elected. They have to know the current events of the day, and they need to know what impacts not only their department, but also the citizens of New Hampshire. And so it was just very concerning to know that this particular proposal should have been streamlined right up to the governor and to the council. And so, but there have been developments in that department over the last several years. I know Michael Graham had mentioned the Elizabeth Gurley historic sign, putting a communist sign in the middle of our state capitol next to a VFW. That's something that Governor Sununu, once I sounded the alarm with the council, took that sign down.
Well, yeah.
Same department, same, bureau. And so it raises concern are these people watching current events? Do they know the severity and implications of what they're doing?
Well, Executive Counselor Joe Kenny, one of the 5 governor and executive councils, we very much appreciate you being open and transparent on my program. Counselor, I just want to ask you a question. I don't know how, but I'm like that. I don't know if it's the Allstate or the State Farm or that insurance commercial. I've seen a thing or two over the years doing my show and being a former TV person. No disrespect to the American Civil Liberties Union at all. No disrespect. They don't file right to request stuff and know something because they have an investigative team of journalists, they are handed something. I'm just telling you how it works. It's like Washington, a little vanilla envelope or an email. Hey, look into this. And all of a sudden, 24-hour right to know. So the question that is begged to be asked here, and I asked your colleague John Stephen, executive counsel, yesterday. I know the attorney general is investigating this department and this story. Are you concerned there might have been a political motivation here by someone in that department to not inform Governor Kelly Ayotte, a Republican running this fall, about an ICE facility in Merrimack to make her look bad, or the Trump administration, or is that far-fetched and off the reservation of feasibility?
Well, I honestly don't know. But what I do know is that there's an attorney general investigation that will get to the bottom of it, much like it got to the bottom of the Chinese bottling company proposal. And we spelled out the Governor Council many questions that have now been answered. Their rules and procedures are now have been added to the BEA department on how to deal with adversarial countries when it comes to purchasing of property. The same thing is going to happen here at the DNCR, is that once that investigation comes out, the rules and procedures will be tightened up. We changed all the rules and procedures for the historical signs in the state, and as the last I knew is still ongoing, to make sure that we have full transparency and that we don't have people inside these agencies or departments who have ulterior motives to try to embarrass someone or not to tell their supervisor when something of this importance comes across their desk. So we're going to tighten it up, Jack. And but I'm not into nefarious, kind of conspiracies. I have to believe that people are honest in these departments. They do a great job, and that there's not any kind of political motive.
Councilor, I appreciate your optimism, but I'm going to just push back respectfully on one thing, because the example of the Chinese wealthiest guy in China buying land in Nashua of the waterworks. How did this happen? I'm going to come back to what you just said. You don't want to believe in anything nefarious or conspiratorial, but you had to be on another planet like Mars the last month to not see the debate nationally and even in Maine with ICE immigration enforcement, and in New Hampshire they had people showing up in Merrimack, and they didn't know if it was rumor or not, protesting a proposed possible ICE detention facility in Merrimack, New Hampshire that would house up to 1,000 detainees. That's a big story. Governor Kelly Ayotte for a few weeks is going around and being asked about this. Hey, is the Trump administration planning to do this? And Governor Ayotte did not know the answer. So how do you be in a department like that when Homeland Security did, because of the setup, did do this, and not put two and two together and think someone like yourself or the governor should not be informed? I mean, how do you do that unless you have some other kind of intentions?
Well, again, we're going to tighten it up and prevent people from being asleep at the wheel. And if there is something that's going on in the department, the investigation will bring that out. If I look at that facility, and I finally looked at it, from Google Earth standpoint, that's a terrible location for a detention facility. Usually you put those type of facilities on military bases or remote areas. You don't put them in urban areas next to the Everett Highway. That's a fast speed of lane of approach to get the hell out of there if someone escapes. I mean, that's a terrible location. So that fact alone would kind of highlight, hopefully, to someone in that department to say, what's this coming across our desk? We need to tell our supervisor, and they in turn need to tell the governor. I'm hoping this investigation will bring this all out, and we'll put an end to it.
All they had to do is
in that agency.
All they had to do was look at the news every day. There was a story on this Merrimack ICE possible detention center every day for how many weeks? All right, Councilor. So you do, without putting words in your mouth, have general concerns over the process going forward, and who knew what when?
Absolutely have concerns, because people who are in leadership position have to know what the governor's doing, what the current events are, what's the hot topic of the day, and how does it impact their department or agency.
All right. Executive Councilor Joe Kenny, one of 5 elected in the governor's executive council. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jack. Have a good day.
All right. Coming up, our own White House correspondent, John Decker. will be checking in, and a lot going on. And we're also going to be hearing from three, not one, but three senior folks with the Attorney General's office on an important subject and how you can help them protect young people and victims of human trafficking. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of NH. Back in a moment.
News. Matters. Check out the Pulse of NH daily poll every day on X, powered by alpinegold.com. Good morning, New Hampshire, live from the Outdoor Pride Studios. Now, back to Jack on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
Okay, we're just about 9:36 Tuesday morning. Get some snow coming in tonight. More on the coast, it looks like, more in that 3 to 5 range by morning tomorrow. It ends overnight early in the morning. Might be a little bit stuff to clean up, but clean off the top of your vehicles as well. By the way, yesterday, someone on the fire safety side sent a message to me during the show. Good reminder on your homes or your condominiums or your apartments. You know your dwelling better than me. On the side of the home, wherever their vents are, if you have basement heating, for example, furnaces, regardless of source, propane, oil, whatever your furnace is, those vents on the side of your home, if they're covered up by snowbanks or falling snow off the roof, go out and shovel those out. Make sure they're open for air so it doesn't build up in your basement. Thank you. Thank you on the public safety side yesterday. You know, coming up, John Decker, our White House correspondent. Top of the 10 o'clock, we got a loaded, packed Attorney General segment for you. Where? Only here, exclusively on the Pulse of an H. Couple program reminders, only here as well, exclusive to the program. This Friday, J-Dog, we go back to our friends And we're going to meet a new weather observer from the top of Mount Washington, the Mount Washington Observatory. And we look forward to that this Friday in the 10 o'clock hour. Also, there's still time to nominate a veteran in your life. Go to thepulseofnh.com. Our honor a hero furnace giveaway. We're going to do it at the end of this week. We're going to meet the veteran and Morgan and her team at Triumph Home Services. Brand new state-of-the-art furnace with free installation into a veteran's home. Go to the Pulse of NH. You'll see the furnace giveaway, honor hero. Nominate a veteran in your life. Just a short email with contact information will take you 3 minutes, if that. No, like 1 for press English, 2 for this, or hold. Just go to the email, fill it out, and you don't have to be a veteran to fill out a veteran nomination in your life. Someone you know and you're proud of. Go do it. It'll be a good thing to do today. They might get it because you nominated them this week, and we've been doing this for 2 or 3 weeks. Morgan and her team going to pick one. And no catch, no gimmicks. Free installation, brand new furnace. You know, I was talking about all the debate over federal immigration enforcement. And the sad part of our political divisiveness today sometimes is what gets lost in the shuffle. What gets lost in the shuffle. And what I mean by that is there was a story earlier this week right here at home about how the opioid, the synthetic fentanyl overdoses and deaths from that deadly addictive drug are more than 50% down. And I have to laugh sometimes at the media, both local and national, or just get a kick out of it, I guess, in all due respect. One of the stories and the assumptions is, well, maybe it's because Narcan, which is, make no mistake about it, a life-saving nasal spray that you can carry and have in your pocketbook, your purse, your car, your vehicle, and first responders, police, firefighters, EMTs have it. For anyone suffering like a fentanyl overdose and unconscious, they can spray that and perhaps in hope save a life. So is it because more people, Narcan has been available for almost 11 years to the general public, 11 years. My point is, did anyone at 60 Minutes, did anyone at ABC News, CBS, any of the media ever think that maybe, just maybe, the most dramatic reduction in drug overdoses, synthetic fentanyl overdoses, drug overdoses, the most dramatic drop in years, like more than 5 years, more than 50%, which is a great thing for humanity. Did anyone ever put the dots together that this current administration, despite all the debate and divisiveness, closed the southwest border to drug trafficking, human trafficking, and the cartels, making it much more difficult to ship this deadly poison across our border? Did anyone ever connect those dots? Oh, geez. Wow. Drug overdose right here in New Hampshire and Maine, 50% less. Do you think it has anything to do with closing the southwest border where the drugs were coming across? And 2 known cartels publicly identified on this program by the DEA. One of them, the Sinaloa, how do you pronounce it, J-Dog?
Sinaloa and Yellowstone.
Sinaloa, whatever it's called. The 2 cartels. What's the other one? You knew the other one?
Jalisco.
Wow, look at you. You know the cartels. Did anyone ever connect the dots that closing the border and these cartels that were taking advantage of an open border where tens of thousands of people crossing every single day in the past 4 or 5 years, human trafficking, drug tunnels, fentanyl, did anyone ever think that, hey, maybe closing the border was a good thing? And maybe there's less, maybe making harder on the drug dealers to get the drugs into New England, up the drug trafficking routes. Wow, we closed the border in what? A month? 2 months, was it? The border was effective with 99% closed. I've never seen a story in the national media, not one story, going down to these Texas towns on the border with Mexico or going to Juarez or El Paso, the Rio Grande. I've never seen one story today what it's like with that border closed after those farmers, the property owners, the Texas governor were dealing with this. I've never seen one story. The border and the previous administration did not want the border to be closed because apparently the new administration was able to close it in a month. The previous administration did not want it closed. They didn't care if 12 to 15 million people were crossing. They didn't care if two cartels were taking advantage, for the most part, of the open border to make billions of dollars shipping, smuggling, transporting synthetic fentanyl across the border, which was finding its way right here in cities like Manchester and Nashville and New Hampshire. They didn't care. So I just think it's interesting, the border shut and these dramatic reduction, which is a good thing, by the way. All right, hey, Alexa, Google, play the Pulse of an H. We come back. John Decker, our own White House correspondent, talking about the latest dump in the Epstein files. And, of course, that's a story that also hit right here at home. Back in a moment.
107.7 Outdoor Pride is the Granite State's largest landscape and snow management firm, proudly serving commercial properties from Greater Manchester to Greater Boston. Visit them online at outdoorpride.com. Now, back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
I'm always amazed as we await John Decker, our own White House correspondent, the listeners out there. So, J-Dog, when you were helping me out with the two publicly known worst of the cartels, biggest multi-billion-dollar Mexican cartels that DEA's identified on our show, and I was bumbling over the pronunciation of the Sinaloa cartel. A federal law enforcement listener, I love this, can't believe it sometimes, this show, texted me phonetically how to pronounce the Sinaloa cartel. He said it's just like Sinaloa cartel. But he said the two cartels are the biggest, and they were the ones that were making the most money off the open border, the southwest border, which for many years, we know the last several in this country was pretty much wide open for business for the cartels to ship the fentanyl across. And the other thing that people didn't realize, who politically kind of were okay with the border being open like that, or porous, crossable. Every time, by the way, I remember this stuff like it was yesterday. That's the problem with politics today. People forget they kind of edit the memory and history, the actual history, to meet their modern day political views. I remember whenever Governor Abbott of Texas or Texas officials would pass a law to crack down on illegal immigrants crossing the border at places like the Rio Grande by the thousands a day. Every time they would either try and make it difficult and fortify the river, put obstacles in the river to slow down the crossing because they were absorbing the cost of this, a federal court, some politically motivated judge will say, state of Texas can't do that. Every time Texas tried to tighten the border, oh, you can't do that. But the point is, regardless of your politics, that open border causing drug deaths in New Hampshire and Maine and Massachusetts and all around the country with fentanyl, the most deadly, I remember when the DEA was on the show, they said, Jack, a little tip of a pen, a ballpoint pen, a Bic pen, the very tip of the pen, like a granular of sugar in your coffee. The tip of that pen amount can cause an overdose, death, and kill. It's that toxic. And people would say on my show or ask me, well, why would the cartel, if they're trying to create addiction, make it so deadly? And the DEA said they don't care. They don't care if someone dies from an overdose. If it's strong and people are addicted, they're going to keep trying to get it and take it. But the other part of this story that no one, when the borders were pretty much wide open, we don't even know in this country. This is what's been obscured by the debate over ICE immigration enforcement. Legitimate or not, this is what's been obscured. The human trafficking consequence, no one wanted to talk about. No one wanted to talk about the human trafficking, the victims, the people from these countries that were paying to come across. That was like, don't bring that up. And the border was closed so quickly, and now we see a reduction in deaths. And that's a good thing. But I haven't seen the media nationally do a story on the southwest border being closed because it doesn't fit the narrative. Doesn't fit the narrative, does it? There's a narrative, folks. There's a narrative. I've seen it over the years. All right, we're going to switch gears. Speaking of narratives, the Epstein files with connotations right here in the Granite State. John Decker, our own White House correspondent, with the latest. And John, everything from NFL owners to Bill Gates to well-known people in New Hampshire named in these emails. What's the latest?
Well, the latest is yesterday was the first day that members of Congress had an opportunity to view the documents without redactions. They could go over to the Department of Justice and view those documents for themselves. They indicated that they viewed the names of 6 prominent individuals contained in the documents that they saw for the limited amount of time that they viewed these documents, 2 to 3 hours. Keep in mind, of course, Jack, there's 3.5 million documents that have been released in the past 2 weeks. There's still 3 million more documents that have yet to be released by the Department of Justice. Tomorrow, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, will testify before the House Judiciary Committee, and you can certainly expect she will get a lot of questions asked of her regarding these documents and the effort by the DOJ to be more transparent and also to comply with what the law is, which is release of all the documents associated with the Jeffrey Epstein investigation.
And John, the ripples of that have been all the way to Manchester, New Hampshire, Concord, New Hampshire. And I didn't realize that even in the state of Maine, where we have so many listeners, former Majority Leader George Mitchell, who heads up the Mitchell Institute, he played that role, J-Dog, in Major League Baseball. George Mitchell mentioned 300 times in Epstein emails and had to resign, or just not had to. He stepped down as head of his own institute. I mean, this is ramifications pretty far and wide, even if it's just your name being mentioned in an email with a dirtbag.
Well, that's exactly right. You expressed it so well. You know, there's no proof that anyone who has been named in any of these documents committed any kind of criminal wrongdoing. But to your point, Jack, no one wants to be associated with a person like Jeffrey Epstein. And I think that's the reason why
Right.
you see a person like George Mitchell step down from that post. And you see the ramifications for members of the royal family and even the UK Prime Minister, who is now facing pressure to resign because of connections that he had to Jeffrey Epstein.
I didn't think just this week I heard that for the first time, someone in his cabinet. The other thing, though, John, I just have to say this because there's this line if you're a prosecutor, and I think the DOJ has said this, being mentioned in an email, I'm just going to say it, with a known dirtbag or Ghislaine Maxwell is not good. But let's just talk about one of the wealthiest people in the world, Bill Gates, for a moment. I mean,
Right.
I'm not saying I think this is fun to watch at all, but his ex-wife, Bill Gates, the last dump of emails in an email, which is hard to dispute, unless I'm getting something wrong, asking for medications because he might have contracted something from an underage victim. That crosses a line to me, but I'm not a prosecutor.
Well, I've seen nothing in terms of the emails that have come out which point to criminal wrongdoing or leading to the possibility of a criminal indictment. And, you know, I'm a lawyer and, you know, I read through this very carefully.
John there?
Yeah, it's highly embarrassing, as you know, Jack. But as it relates to criminal wrongdoing, that's an entire step beyond what we're talking about right here. And I think that's the type of question that will be asked of Pam Bondi tomorrow before the House Judiciary Committee.
And then the other thing is you are an attorney, John Decker, as we let you go. I don't know who came up with the line, death by 1,000 cuts, but it just seems that this story is going to keep going for the foreseeable future.
Well, you're right about that. You know, you factor in 3 million documents, and we haven't, seen the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's potentially contained in those documents, and then 3 million more yet to be released. So this story, as you point out, Jack, and I think you're absolutely 100% right, it's not going away. It's been around for months and months, and I don't see it going away anytime soon.
All right, John Decker, our own White House correspondent. Thank you on this Tuesday morning. All right, we come back. Thank you, John. We got a packed segment coming up live and in our studio. 3 senior members of the Attorney General's office talking about their work. Speaking of young victims, this is an incredible timing, not planned that way, but human trafficking. Also, we do have some snow on the way. Now, places where they want it, like, ski country, 4 to 8 inches maybe up in Conway, 3 to 5 coast, maybe different amounts. Lakes region always seems to get more than forecasted. Like, we have so many people listening in the Lakes region, 107.3 FM, 1490 AM, 98.3 FM HD2. And Concord area, maybe a little less, Manchester, Nashua, but coast, maybe 3 to 5. So that's coming, I think, about dinner time or 7 o'clock tonight, overnight, ending in the early morning hours tomorrow, Wednesday. And then we have a milder day. So here's a thought. You don't have to run out and shovel, but please clean off your vehicle in the morning, the hood and the roof if you're outdoors, or the truck. It's a law. Shouldn't have to be a law. Clean it off. Takes 2 minutes so it doesn't fly onto the vehicles behind you when you get on the highway. But tomorrow's temperatures, wait till noon and might just melt, believe it or not. We're getting into the milder temperatures. And one other thing I just got to say on a positive note, J-Dog, I got to ask you about my jaw. I feel like it locked in there. We had Dr. Stephanie in here yesterday. Maybe she could do an adjustment. J-Dog, one of the things I noticed yesterday, I don't know what time you walk in the afternoon back, and J-Dog's a walker. I walk.
Leave till 6 last night.
Well, guess what? I was out there till after 5, and it was still light out. It was like 5:15, and it wasn't dark. Wasn't that nice? Isn't that nice? So just about
sunset,
the time.
5:10 tonight.
What is it?
5:10 tonight, sunset.
Okay. J-Dog, just it's interesting. Just what I've noticed is in New England my whole life, just when you're having enough of winter, Although people who are skiing and boarding and hiking and love the winter snow,
No shoe.
snowshoeing, snowmobiling, sledding, you name it. People that are enjoying this can't get enough. By the way, a funny other note, a brother-in-law of mine who's retired, but he's having too much fun. He's out west with his buddy, and he says it's like spring skiing out in like Wyoming, and not a ton of snow. The best skiing is back here in the east. So people that like the the snow, they're enjoying more snow tonight. Not like, oh no. But the good news is it's staying light later. It's going to get milder. So hopefully you won't have to shovel. But I hope my buddy Joe, coming back from Lauderdale by the Sea, has to shovel. He's been down there having too much chill time. All right. Hey, Alexa, Google Play the Pulse of an H. The Attorney General segment exclusively here on the Pulse of an H coming up next.